So I'm going to start with 3 little stories on how data-driven self-discovery, turning your body's outputs into numbers, is good for society, improves the public health, and makes us happier. So there's a really terrible disease called ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. It wastes your muscles, and after diagnosis, typically you're dead between 3 and 5 years. There's no cure. There's one treatment, a drug called riluzole, that's said to delay the final onset, but it's not been good news until about 3 years ago, when a team of Italian researchers found that if you give patients lithium, it can put off some of the symptoms. The only problem was it was a sample of just 16 people, which isn't scientifically that credible. There's an online community called Patients Like Me, about 100,000 people who are sharing their details of how they're responding to treatments for about 500 different conditions. And they thought, let's be a bit more scientific about this. So they got their online community, those who were suffering from ALS, to experiment with lithium. So about 3,500 people participated, and about 150 of them took the lithium treatment, and they had algorithms, and they balanced it out to make sure it was valid. This is the website. They found that lithium didn't make things better. In fact, there wasn't even a placebo effect. And they published this in a respected journal, Nature Biotechnology. So this group of people volunteering their time and being honest and sharing pushed science forward that much more. Now there's another online community called Cure Together with about 27,000 members. Again, 500 or 600 illnesses that they're talking about. Now, a lot of people have depression, and people find different ways to deal with it. You can take medication, you can take therapy. For some people, it's alcohol. So this community decided to track people with depression, it's about 5,000 of them over a year, and see what symptoms they were showing, and see how they responded to various treatments. And they tracked the data, and they mapped it out, a little pictogram here. And it was really quite revealing. So if you look, the left-hand line going upwards is how effective people self-reported the treatments, and the horizontal is how many reported that. And the response was at the top right, the most popular and the most effective. It was exercise, and then getting a bit more sleep. The least effective, in fact, it set you back, was alcohol. Caffeine wasn't too good. But then in the middle, they learned new things. Music therapy, art therapy. For a lot of people, that created a measurable benefit. So the third of my little stories is about asthma. Who here suffers from asthma? Okay, so you'll know one of the problems is you can't always predict when it's going to hit. It's not always easy to know the environmental conditions that are going to cause an attack. Some American physicians decided to track data to try and solve this.
Each day, millions of Americans carry and use inhalers to relieve asthma symptoms. How often a person uses their inhaler indicates how well their disease is managed. The Spiroscout is a small device that attaches easily to most inhalers. It uses GPS to automatically determine the exact time and location when the inhaler is used, because revealing where people use their inhalers provides valuable clues about environmental exposures that cause attacks. Our tools help patients, physicians, and public health agencies systematically track asthma in real time so that they can put the latest information to work to better understand and control the disease.
So from the patterns, from the visualization, comes knowledge that you didn't have before. So there's a huge and growing trend of what's called self-tracking, personal informatics, the quantified self. It's not just medical. People are using it to track everything from fitness and sleep patterns and diets. One website here, Trainio, which uses game mechanics to try and get you to diet more. There's before and after photos all over there. There's a community that's leading you forward, but it's all based on measurements, based on results. This is another one from MIT, where you can map all sorts of things, and it will visualize it for you. So this user, mapping not just types of coffee in the middle, but how happy they're feeling, depending on how much work they've done on their thesis at that moment. It's pretty open to track whatever you want these days. Again, this user is tracking how much they're spending every day, but also on the right, when they seem to be having the most sex. So October seems to be a pretty hot month in that household. There's medical statistics, and there's personally useful statistics. This is a website, Monthly Info, which tracks a woman's menstrual cycle. There's a similar website that claims to email the loved one when you're going through that moody stage. And there's lots of slightly more fun and less scientifically reliable ones, apps that you can get for your phone, tracking your sexual prowess. Of course, many people here would say their iPhone doesn't have enough memory to track all their prowess. And then there are the tools, the devices. Now, this is a Zeo, which tracks your sleep. You put it on your pillow, and you get a lovely little graphic, a map, showing you when you are at optimum sleep, when you should be woken, and so on. It changes behavior. Those who use it are pretty addicted to it. There's various iPhone apps that on a lower level claim to do similar things with the accelerometer. This is one I'm pretty addicted to. It's called Runkeeper. I run with it. It tracks using GPS where you are, gives you your personal figures, but then it gives you maps and graphs, and you can share it with other people. And a bizarre thing happened about 10 days ago. I got an email saying, "Congratulations, David. April was your best month yet." And I know it was a machine that sent it to me, but it made me really excited. And it made me want to compete against April in May. So there's, both with other people and with the machine tracking against yourself, a motivation to improve. Loic, who runs Le Web in Paris, is pretty obsessed by this. He is a marathon runner who tracks his sleep with his Zeo. He also graphs how his weight and his sleep affect his runs. And when you see patterns, you can learn from them. You can realize which aspects of your diet makes you less effective as a performer. It's the game dynamic that you get, let's say, on the dashboard of the Prius, trying to encourage you to brake more efficiently to save energy. You get these little visuals. So Nicholas Felton, for the last few years, has published his annual personal report, the Feltron Report, where he tracks all sorts of data through the year from, where he's been, how many beers he's had, to his mood, how happy he's been on particular days, the places he's been the most. He's created an app called Datum, where anybody can start tracking things. You can choose what you track. This user is quite tall, and she was quite bored with everybody making comments about her height, so she thought she'd take control over it. And so she graphed every comment people made about her height. So the most common metric was, "Hey, you're so tall." And the second one was, "Hey, are you a model?" And so on. I don't know, it gives you a bit more power back, I think, when you've got the raw data. But this is the big one. This is the one that is potentially transformative in all sorts of ways. You send off a bit of money. They keep changing their price, but it's usually a couple of $100 to this company in California, 23andMe, and they send you this little plastic tube that you spit into. And 5 or 6 weeks later, you get a very detailed breakdown of your DNA. And they give you personal pages where not only do they tell you what diseases you have a higher or lower risk than the norm, but where your family's from. You can track your maternal and paternal haplotype. And strange things happen. So, yes, it's great to know that you might have a lower than ordinary risk of getting Alzheimer's. You need to understand a bit about risk here. And there's also privacy issues. Would you want your insurer knowing this? Would you want this public? But a lot of people are voting to share this information in that community and do it often under their real name. And what happens when you sign up is after you've got your gene details, 23andMe sends you a message saying, we have 991 potential relatives on our database. And it breaks them down into second cousins, third cousins, fourth cousins. A second cousin is someone you share a great-grandparent with. And then you start getting messages in your in-tray. So I got a message, hello, my name's Alison. We share 0.6% of our DNA on 6 strands. Would you like to talk? I've got enough to deal with the LinkedIn request and the Facebook request, so I didn't. But you can see potentially, not just reuniting families, but also if you might need bone marrow, if there is a family illness you want to learn more about. In the Jewish community, if you're going to get married, you're encouraged by the rabbis to take a test for something called Tay-Sachs, because if both parents carry, it's very hard to have children who survive. So this man, who's married to the founder of 23andMe, Sergey Brin, he discovered that he is a carrier of the gene that predisposes you to Parkinson's. It's the LRRK2 mutation on the 12th chromosome, to be precise. Normally, about 1% of us have it, or rather, no. Normally, if you have it, you have about a 1%. Normally, you have a 1% chance of developing Parkinson's, but if you have it, it goes up to somewhere between 30 and 75%. Now, Sergey is a man of numbers, and he decided he was going to look at the stats. And he found out, according to the studies, if you change your diet, if you do exercise, you can cut the odds. Exercise regularly, maybe it's 50 or 60% lower. If you have coffee, it decreases your risk. He didn't like coffee. He decided to have green tea because he thought it was the caffeine. Funnily enough, if you smoke, you get a slightly lower risk. Not that I'm encouraging this. And he calculated that with all these numbers and with likely developments in neuroscience, he could probably get his odds down to about 13%. But I love that taking control. This is somebody he's been working with at Google, Eric Schmidt, who said recently that in all of human civilization up until 2003, collectively we generated about 5 exabytes of data. It's about 5 billion gigabytes. But now we're generating that every 2 days, and the pace is accelerating. So we've got an opportunity here. We've just got to learn how to read all this data, to spot patterns that we can act on. But again, we've got tools in another way. We've got new skills of visualization. So this is the traffic in Lisbon over a 24-hour period, mapped according to speed and volume. This is by a man called Pedro Cruz. But I think you'll agree, it's a beautiful new way of understanding traffic flow in an urban area. This is one we just published in Wired. It's by Olivier Duchesne of an organization called Science Metrics. It maps collaborations between scientists. If a scientific journal includes an article from people from 2 universities, it takes that data and it visualizes it. So you can see where the most dense collaboration lies. This is one of my favorites. A guy called Chris Harrison visualized the Bible, 63,000 chapters, and he correlated them where they link together. He did this beautiful rainbow visualization. So it's just the creativity of how we visualize all these raw numbers that can help empower us. And data storage is something that's affordable to everyone now. This is a 1 terabyte box I bought on Amazon for £50. I thought I would fill it in 3 or 4 years. It's kind of full after a couple of months because it changes your behavior. You don't delete anything. It's what you can fit on a terabyte of storage. not personally. But the price of storage is going down to 0. Again, it's an opportunity. So let's collect our outputs and let's try and understand them, because you might not spot the trends, join the dots yet, but at some stage soon, you will. This is a great example.
The Copenhagen wheel. The wheel that turns your ordinary bike into a smart electric hybrid. Quickly and easily, with no additional batteries or wires. The Copenhagen wheel allows you to capture the energy dissipated while braking and cycling, and save it for when you need a bit of a boost. Controlled through your smartphone, the Copenhagen wheel becomes a natural extension of your everyday life. The Copenhagen wheel is your personal trainer, sensing your effort level and providing you with real-time feedback about your fitness and exercise goals. The Copenhagen wheel also enhances your experience of the city. It connects you with things a cyclist wants to know: upcoming traffic congestion, road conditions, and pollution levels. Choose to keep your data, or share it with your friends and other cyclists through social networks like Facebook. As you ride, you also collect green miles. It's similar to a frequent flyer program, but good for the environment. Elegant, responsive, smart. A new mode of transport for a rapidly changing world.
So this is developed by the Sensible Cities Lab at MIT, but it's here now. And it's a way of turning our bodily outputs into something that is socially useful. It maps pollution in real time across the city, but also useful for us. You compete against yourself. You see how fit you're getting. And I think we're going to get a lot more devices linked to the network that track our output in this socially useful way. Because I think it's about us taking control, us opening up our own API, because we've got enough corporations who are interested in tracking our data. They're tracking our cookies, they're scanning our faces, they're triangulating on wireless to offer us targeted offers. And that's all fine if there's a use for it. But I think the social benefits come from us sharing, because we don't yet know what all the advantages are going to be, but you've seen some examples. This is a patent application from Microsoft. It's a system of, quote, personal data mining to enable the identification of opportunities for provisioning recommendations to increase user productivity or to improve quality of life. I'd rather we took control. We found the patterns. We acted smarter. Thank you.